Hey everybody, what's going on? We are back with Here's the Deal. This is going to be episode 2 of a three-part series called Keeping the Main Thing the Main Thing. All right. Episode 1, we talked a little bit about um, business owners going after like the shiny thing. You know what I mean? It's good to diversify revenue streams, okay? But, you know, it's got to tie into what the main purpose is for your business and what your main message is. Okay. So, as long as you're doing that, you can diversify revenue streams. Matter of fact, it's encouraged to diversify revenue streams because you don't want to be over reliant on one particular client or one particular sector, right? And that's something we're going to talk more about in this episode. So, you're running your business no matter what it is. You can be a service based business, you could provide products, things like that. Keep the main thing the main thing. You know, do what you do and just just keep the machine running. Again, if you want to branch off into doing some other things once that real core business is established, then yes, I definitely highly encourage it. Like I said, I was a financial advisor. I worked for Charles Schwab. I worked for Morgan Stanley, and we talked about diversification of portfolios all the time. Everybody wants to be, Mag 7, blah, 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 whatever, whatever the buzz thing's going on. Everybody's, AI and stuff like that now. So diversification of your portfolio, and does it fit your risk tolerance? That was always a question. Does it fit your risk tolerance? Depends on your age, depends on where you're at in your portfolio. Your business is the same way. Okay. If you're a newer business and you're still developing and there's this great opportunity to get in to do X, Y, Z, and ABC. Okay. Well, you know what? This is my main thing. Okay. This is what I do. And this is what I do better than anybody else. So I need to be focused on this. A couple years down the road, like I said, once it gets up and running and humming and things are going smooth, you want to start taking a look at some other things. Excellent. Good idea. But at the same time, you got to keep the main thing, right? We talked about noise and signal. Okay. You want to stay focused on the signal. Don't get distracted by the noise. In this episode, like I said, we're talking about not being uh, overly reliant on one client, though. And this is where diversification, does come in. You're doing your thing. You're doing the main thing. Whatever it is that you do, you're a chef, you're a mechanic, you're a clothing retailer, whatever, right? You're doing your thing. Everything's cool. If you're overly reliant on one client or um, let's say one supplier, okay, that or that's the thing that can really kill your business, because if that one client, we talked about this a little bit in the last episode too, if you're one client, let's say you just landed this big DoD contract, you landed a big contract with Amazon, whatever, and they change terms on you and they have the leverage, you don't, you're stuck like Chuck. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be able to absorb those things. So as I talked about with my clients when I was a financial advisor, or even in banking, as I talked about, different revenue streams for people in their companies and things like that. You don't want to be overly concentrated. And that was a big red flag when I was in lending. If they were overly reliant on one particular client, I'm like, look, dude, yeah, your business is cash flowing, it's humming. You lose this client, that's like 40% of your customer base. I mean, your revenue. You're stuck, bro. You know what I mean? So you can't really be overly concentrated like that. So you have to really, be cognizant, about those kind of things. One client is not a business; it's dependency, right? So, like I said, that company goes out, that company you're working with goes out of business, or they change terms, or whatever, change ownership, and they just don't want to work with you anymore. That you're doomed. You're doomed. Okay, so working, in different, uh, working with different clients. Like I said, maybe even working with different suppliers, making sure if you got a supplier that does great for you, but maybe they're overly concentrated on their stuff manufactured in China, and we have another COVID situation. You're not getting product, okay? But if you can start getting some people that maybe manufacture in Mexico, or they manufacture, in the States or whatever, then at least you could diversify some of your supply chain too, and where you could still provide your services for your clients, because you can actually, get the products made. So definitely, like I said, you got to really keep keep abreast of these things and really have that, in the forefront of your mind, because the markets are going to shift. We know that. I mean, again, being a financial advisor, there's always going to be ebbs and flows in the market. Being a business owner, there's always the ebbs and the flows. It's how well you manage through that. Can you keep that consistent cash flow? Can you keep the consistent client base? Yeah, I could talk. So consistency to anything else is always the key, right? We talked about consistency of message in the last episode too. Okay. People got to know what your message. If you're off doing 8 different things, you kind of lost sight of what it is that you're doing, right? Now, again, like I said, even with this show, myself, my focus is to educate, elevate, and inspire, the next generation of business owners or those who are currently own a business. I want them to be able to elevate and get to that next level. That's what this podcast does. Now, we do provide video content, quality video content at a very cost-effective rate, where, like I said, it's easy, comfortable, and cost-effective, right? But I got a little more sidetracked on that deal, and I wasn't keeping the main thing, what got me here, the podcast. So again, refocused, hit the reset button. Here we are, back doing the main thing, but still providing the content, as well. Just had a customer. I just did a little 10 reel clip for him. Loved it. Everything's great. Satisfied customer. Going to do a testimonial. All that's fantastic. Love doing that. But I said, main thing right here. Here we are, right? Doing what we do, right? Let me see here. It looks like I was reading a statistic here. It says, use the diversification to protect your core, not replace it. Okay. I love that. When I read that, I was like, oh, that's really good. You can diversify your core product or service, right? But again, it's got to tie in to what it is that you do. Okay. So let's just say, my mechanic, Phil, right? Runs Litchfield Auto. Obviously, he keeps motors humming, things like that, everything like that. But he also does tires. Does it fall back into the main thing? Of course it does, because he's maintaining the entire car. Okay. Front end to back. There's nothing in a car Phil doesn't do. Okay. Does, transmissions. Just was over there. They're doing a whole engine rebuild, but they do tires. Okay. And they do alignments and they're like that. So they know your car from tip to tail. Okay. But all the different services that he does tie in to the main thing, knowing your automobile better than everybody else. So 60% of small businesses still struggle with cash flow, with delayed payments, and manually processed cited major culprits according to Ideal Float. So it was over reliance on a few clients, especially those making more than 30% of your revenue, like we talked about a little bit earlier, is the leading reason businesses run out of cash, contributing to 82% of the failures in recent data. That was according to Idea Flow from 2024. So again, you don't stay on message. Okay. You don't stay on the main thing. This is what can happen to you. 82% of failure rate. Okay. Pretty staggering statistic. Don't let your company, be one of those 82, right? You don't want to do that. So again, we want our customers, we want our clients. This is the call to action. What is your main thing right now? What is it that you got into business to do? What was it that made you say, hey, I'm going to quit my corporate job, okay, and get into this? Lots of shiny things. Oh yeah, you can. What is it? Affiliated marketing. You get paid for referrals, and all great, gravy. But the main thing, stay focused. Or hey, if you're doing this, you could do it. Again, you got to stay. What's the main thing here? You got to stay focused on that. Again, once it gets up and humming and running and things are going smooth, absolutely look to diversify for sure. But it's got to tie into the main service, right? So what is one thing you're doing this week that is pulling you away? Okay. What's got you really distracted off of your main focus? Ask yourself that question. Be honest. Okay. If you're not honest with yourself as a business owner, or if your business coach is telling you, hey, bro, lady, check this out. You're screwing up. All right. Or your spouse or whoever. Somebody's got to be able to be honest with you. You should be honest with yourself. If you're not honest with yourself, if somebody else is preaching you the truth, you need to listen. Okay. Don't just blow this off just because, I know what I'm doing, or no, this is going to be really great. I mean, could be, but like I said, I think that's one thing. If you can be honest with yourself and really scrutinize what it is that you're doing, you're going to be way further ahead of the game. What can you delegate? What can you pause or delete to recenter your business? Okay. We talk about delegation all the time. Okay. I'm working on doing a lot of that myself. Like I said, my business coach, Eric Whitmoyer, my business coaches, we're working on this all the time. Delegation. I'm working on delegating a lot of these tasks that I do. So that way I can keep the main thing, keep the people on the podcast, keep the guests coming, keep the reels, pushing out, things like that. I was just at my Westside Moneymakers group, my networking group, and we talked about this also in that group. Okay. And I was telling the guys, look, if you're too busy to network because you got to do this, you're not delegating. Okay. You got to get to a point in your business, and you probably have heard a million people say this, where you're not working in the business, you're working on the business. As a business owner, you got to get to that point. Eric stresses this all the time. Your business should be able to run without you. Okay. Your business should, even if you took a week's vacation, 2 weeks, your business should be fine. That's the point you got to get to, because then you're not working in the business, you're working on the business, because that allows you to step outside the walls and go bring in more clients, go do that. Okay. It's critical, especially if you want to sell a business. Okay. That's the thing. If you're not in business to grow it, to either pass it off to your family and you want to sell it, if your business can't run without you, you can't sell it. Because if you sold your business to me and that business depended upon you, when I take it over, I can't run it like you ran it. Okay. That's the thing. You got to have the staff in place. You got to have the resources in place as far as different automations, things like that. That's not so you intensive. Okay. Be thinking of this when you start a business, or if you're in a business, start thinking of the exit strategy. I talked about this with my clients all the time when I was in lending. Okay. Or when I was financial advising. What's the magic number? What number are we shooting for? Or in your business, when do you want to retire, and with how much? Let's work towards that goal. Okay. So this week, take a break, pause, breathe, get recentered. Okay. If there's something you can automate, if you say, I have to do this and that, no. Okay. If you're got that tight a grip, you got the reins held that tight, you're screwing up. You're never going to grow your business. You're never going to scale it. It's impossible. Okay. You got to start saying, hey, I brought on XYZ. I brought on Tommy, Jill, whoever. I'm going to start showing them how to do this little thing. So that way I hired them for a reason. What does Steve Jobs say? I hire people smarter than me. So that way I don't tell them what to do. They know what to do, right? They're telling me what to do. So I'm paraphrasing there, but you hire people. Like I said, I always quote Adam Sandler from Next Generation Leader. There are people out there that love to do what you hate. Let them do it. Okay. Delegate those tasks. Okay. Stay focused on the main thing. Delegate those tasks. So that way you can keep the main thing. All right. And then ask yourself, who is your core client and what are you the best at delivering to them? Okay. Think about that. What am I the best at? I'm best at interviewing business owners. I'm best at interviewing business service providers that provide service to other businesses. They come on here, they come on the show, they talk about what it is they do. It could be coaching. It could be fractional CFOs. It could be, Meta and Google ads, whatever, branding, all that stuff, right? AI tools. They're the best at it. That's why I get them to come on the show. I draw it out, what it is that they do. So that way it's a clear message. So that way everybody can hear what's going on. If you're a business owner, I need to talk to that person. I need to talk to her. I need them in my team. That's what I do. And I'm better at it than most. Okay. So main thing, that's what I do. And then I can create really good video content from that. All right. So you got to review your revenue mix. if you got a single client or a sector that's contributing 25 to 30% of your total revenue, how can that be reduced? Okay, again, you don't want to be overly concentrated. And this is, when I was a financial advisor too, everybody had all these mutual funds, right? Okay, you got different, a lot of those mutual funds had the same stocks in them. A lot of them had Apple, a lot of them had Google. So you're overlapping whether you wanted to or not. You're like, oh, I have different mutual funds. You really don't, because a lot of those mutual funds had the same stocks in them. So if that sector or that stock goes down, it's dragging your whole portfolio down. What you want to do is layer it to where it's like, okay, let's say, this particular fund is, tech heavy. This one's manufacturing. If tech's going down, maybe, S&P is going up, manufacturing is going up. Great. We offset, we offset the balance there. So look at your customer base. And if you're way too heavily concentrated on that, especially if it's just one client, it's like 30% or more, you got to work on that for sure. Then I would also recommend, all your recent, initiatives, and do they support that core purpose like we talked about earlier? Is it an opportunistic thing, or is it a distraction? Again, be honest. Be honest. A lot of things sound great. There's a lot of things I want to get into. I got all kinds of plans for this show and doing sub shows and this. I was, working with Eric. We were going to do another show, things like that. I said, you know what? We got to put that on pause. I'm not there, right? I got to keep, here's the deal, cranking. All right. We're going to do a sub show. I got another whole different idea for another show I'm going to do, and I will do it. That will happen. Me and the EC Life, me and Eric, we're going to do that show. We're going to do another one, or I got a whole other idea that's coming, but not until here's the deal, really cranking where I want it to be. Then I'll start doing those other shows. All right. And it's okay to say no. I know it's hard when you're a new business owner and you want to just take in every client. You want to, and I know, like I said, if you've been in business for a minute, you've heard this before. When somebody says, who's your client base? Everybody. No, no, they're not. Okay. You got to know how to say no. Okay. You got to know how to say no to deals that don't fit your client base. Okay. There's a lot of people want to come on a show. I say no. I don't care how big, because if we're not vibing, if I wouldn't recommend you to somebody, if I wouldn't recommend you to my mother, right, to do business, then, I'm not having you on my show. That's just the bottom line. You can be blah, blah, blah. And plus I get all these people. Oh yeah. So-and-so's done blah, blah. That's great. You know what? Until they do a one-to-one with me and we have a conversation, that's what I tell them. Hey, have them schedule a one-to-one. Let's talk. Maybe I will have a show, but they never do. See, that's the thing. I'm not just going to have you on the show because you got to fit my model. You got to be the type of person that I want to refer people to. Okay. And if you're not, then you're not. It's just that simple. I keep the main thing. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say, when I was in lending, it's okay. I probably kicked more people out that were like, oh my God, you didn't work with that person. You didn't do this deal. You didn't do that. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Cause we didn't vibe. We didn't vibe. Okay. If they're squawking right now and we haven't even done the deal yet, they're going to come to me every quarter point and complain and like, God, the loan went, dude, I don't got time. Okay. If you don't understand how business works, yeah, I do everything I can for my clients. I did everything I could, get them the best deal, the best rates. Ask anybody who was ever my manager. They'll tell you what a pain in the ass I was. Okay. I argue the shit out of deals all the time because, hey, this is a good deal. Here's why. And here's the rate we're giving them. No, this is a good deal. Here's why. This is the rate we're giving them. I argue till the cows come home. I did that for my clients. But if you're coming at me a certain way, I'm like, you know what? Nah, you know what? Go find another bank. I don't care if you're a whatever you can turn into freaking Amazon. I don't care. If I'm not dealing with you, I'm not dealing with you. It's okay to say no. All right. You got to sharpen your focus on what your baseline strengths are. Okay. Stay in your lane. That's, I love that saying, stay in your lane, and it's okay. You know what? I love I quote this all the time. My friend Moses Sanchez. Yeah, he says all the time, "Be brilliant at the basics." Okay, when it comes to like SEO stuff, things like that, that dude is brilliant at the basics. That guy knows everything about SEO game. All right, and he's an expert at it. So that's the thing. When your industry, stay focused, stay sharp. Okay, and keep the main thing the main thing. That's the deal. Here in closing up the show, and here's the deal. Just want to give all honor, glory, and praise to my Lord Jesus Christ, who, saved my soul and gives me the ability to do this show. Without him, I couldn't do anything. Also, want to give thanks to my family. My wife, my kids support me doing this, and backing me up. I couldn't do any of this without them. Also, got to thank the sponsors, of course. Everybody that supports the show, and of course the fans, the people that subscribe to the show. I wouldn't do any of this without you because it wouldn't be a show. So just want to say thank you all very much. Continue to educate and elevate. Get out there, pursue your passions, pursue your dreams.